So it is absolutely important now that they ruin everything that was good about animation from our childhood. For people who know this series, it's important that they ruin everything now. That's what they set out to do. Now, this is an article from Bounding into Comics, so I'll get into that in a second. But when X-Men 97 was first announced, I was happy but skeptical. They said that they wanted to continue on from the classic 90s X-Men animated series. That's what they wanted to continue on from. But I know the type of entertainment that we get in these days, and I know their insistence on destroying any and everything that could be considered good. So it didn't, I was waiting, hoping. I wasn't even saying hoping. I know it was going to happen, but now we have confirmation of it. Let's get into this. X-Men 97 head writer hints Disney Plus series will reflect modern issues. The world is a very different place than when the original was first made. Oh, here we go. In the latest indication that the series will suffer from the same critical theory-based writing that has doomed so many productions before it, X-Men 97 head writer Bo DeMaio has suggested that the upcoming Disney Plus revival of the classic Marvel series will see a focus on today's world woven into its story. Yep. Here we go, people. Here we go. It's still an iconic scene. Apocalypse there, Rogue. DeMaio provided this hint at X-Men 97's planned direction during a recent discussion regarding the various ways in which the fan favorite incarnation of the Marvel super teams return to the small screen will differ from their initial outing. Before delving fully into the topic, DeMaio opened his talk with Wilhelm by clarifying that though he and his team planned to make changes to the show, one aspect they wanted to carry over from the original was the earnestness of its characters, particularly in how all of their emotions are on full display. Okay, I have no problem with that. That did happen. I have no problem with that whatsoever. For me, it made sense once I met Julia and Eric Lewald and Larry Houston, who were the creators and directors of the original series, who are literally the best people you could possibly imagine, as they are so earnest and sincere as people. He added, when you watch the series, I think what we remember about it is that there is such an earnestness to all of the characters. Everyone's emotions are on full display. Everyone is sincere, and it is just when you meet the Lewalds and Larry, it's just like, oh, I totally get it. In the end, DeMaio revealed to Milheim his philosophy towards the revival's production, explaining, I think the challenge to me was honoring that earnestness and emotional sincerity in the show, where it wasn't just about the big bad of the day. That was almost, in most cases, an afterthought, the writer recalled. It was really about the relationship of this found family and how they cared about each other and had disagreements. Yes, to an extent. He further noted, and I always just come back whenever we're talking in the writer's room or we're talking to the directors, it's just like we have to have earnest emotion in every scene, because I really do think that was the secret sauce to the original series. Yeah, partially, yes. Building upon the apparent focus on emotion I don't know if would be a better word to use, right? I think that show is amazing in so many different ways. I think what I would say is that the generation who grew up watching that show, we have grown up and the world is a very different place than when the show was first made. Okay, you see right there is where it starts. And so it is more a question of what does the show look like knowing what we know now, and how it looks like in today's world when everything that has changed and everything that hasn't changed sadly in our world. That is where I believe my focus has been as a storyteller has recently been that he concluded. Now, let me say this. When you look at X-Men, the animated series, it stands alongside Batman, the animated series, as some of the best animated shows of the 90s. Because it was real, it was raw, it was what it needed to be. Now, when you make statements like, or say things like, and how it looks like in today's world, everything that has changed, what has changed is that we have gone backwards instead of forward. That's what has happened. We've gone backward instead of forward. And what I mean by backward instead of forward is that wokeness has taken us backwards. What was so good about these shows and other shows from the 90s is that the very thing they talk about today was already present. You had inclusiveness, you had diversity, you had these things. It wasn't rammed down your throat because it was done with characters and actors that you could relate to. If you take, for instance, you look back at shows like Family Matters. Family Matters was an all-black cast, all-black leading cast. But everybody, whether they were white, whether they were black, whether they were Indian, whether they were Portuguese, whatever, Chinese, whatever, Asian, whatever, could relate to these people. You had shows like Married with Children, what else, Seinfeld, these kind of things. You did not even need to sit down and say, well, oh, how come I know black people like this, how come I know this? You could relate to these characters. Even if you look at a show that has been more, well, it ended a little while ago, but if you look at a show like, let's say, Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory majority, Big Bang Theory was a full white cast. They had Raj, who was Indian. Understand me? But you could relate to these characters because you liked them. You weren't concerned about who are the representatives, what represented that. They represented themselves and connected with people. Now, when you look at a show like X-Men, what made X-Men so damn good was that it stuck to what it needed to be. It told the story it needed to tell. You could get sucked in. You were interested. You knew what was going on. In today's society, everybody a small subsection, very small, less than 1%, has a problem, make noise on Twitter, and these woke lunatics who write these shows run with it. And speaking of people who write these shows, let's look at some of them. Here's one. Previously, the show's supervising director, right? This is the show's supervising director. Look at one of his posts. F Trump. He's still your boy. F you too, right? You have a next supervising producer. Donald Trump cannot condemn white supremacists because he is a white supremacist. And he continues on with it again, and I rant continue with it again. I have a next one here. The cynical inevitability of the Rittenhouse verdict doesn't take into... I mean, come on now, man. And here's the next one. And in my personal writing tropes, grappling with gender, himbo, good boys, mom stuff, queer kids going on adventures that have zero to... I mean, let's ask yourself, these are the people who are put to write these things, because for some reason they seem to think that these people are somehow sane. I don't know why. X-Men told stories in a time where you could relate to your characters and get it. And people will say that, oh, the X-Men have always been, diverse, and they've always been about it. Okay, you look at X-Men. The X-Men it had basic racism. It was basically genetic racism in X-Men because the mutants were treated that way. But this is why I've always said the world of animation, the world of comics, the world of movies, these things must remain separate from this world. Yes, there can be influences, but there's a reason it's called fiction. You have created this universe, and you have these things in this universe. But when you want to push what happens in this universe, in our reality, into what's in this fictitious reality, it becomes a problem. It's the same thing like what they did with Static Shock, when they decided to change its origin to a Black Lives Matter protest. It made no blasted sense. So when I see things like you want to adjust it to fit what's going on in the world today and all kind of thing, and sadly how the world has changed, the world has progressed backwards because of this. They come now, you can't say certain things, you can't do certain things. One of the things about the X-Men is that they were persecuted for being mutants. How is that going to work now? No, you can't persecute nobody. That's a problem. You understand me? They were mutants. No, they're supposed to be accepted. They're supposed to be that their whole thing was that struggle. But you don't care about anything anybody likes. You don't want to, invest in that. You just want to jump down onto this. I remember a time I watched this episode of Kim Possible, and Ron had made this friend who was in a wheelchair, and Kim was a little uncomfortable in how to deal with him. I mean, she wasn't scorning him or anything. It's just that, the guy was in a wheelchair, and she didn't want to treat him differently, but she also didn't know exactly how to interact with him. It was such a real scene, or such a real thing, because this is how most people will very well react. They're not scorning anybody, but they're trying to figure out how best to do it. And you learn that lesson. This is one of the things you learned in X-Men. Lessons in how things could go wrong. I remember when they had Cannonbolt. They had this group of hated mutants came and poisoned the tongue against him. Starting to say that mutants were causing this, mutants were causing that. And there was this whole trouble with it. And you saw that emotion, you saw how that could happen. Would you get it in this? No. Because you all want to take out everything that's good about these shows and replace them with your own narcissist nonsense. And you have people like this writing it, producing it. X-Men towed the line between, reality, heroism, being excluded, all these things. That's what made the show so good. And you want to ruin that because you all want to rewrite it to fit whatever sick narrative you think is best for you. So there it is, people. The writing is literally on the wall. X-Men 97 head writer hints Disney Plus series will reflect modern issues. It's already D.O.A. out the door. That's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments what you all think about this. If you think it may turn out better, fine, let me know. If not, let me know that too. If you like the video, be sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, ring the notification bell, be notified every time I put out a new video. And be sure to share the video out there. It really helps to push the algorithm along. I shall see you all next time. Take care.